This is the Green Committee meeting. We're starting the meeting at 2:18. I'd like to first have start with Pledge of Allegiance. We can all stand for the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
liberty
and
justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
And let's just take a moment of silence for all of those victims from COVID, both on the front lines helping us out and those who passed on from it. Thank you. Please be seated. Carrie Ann, may I have roll call, please?
Benton,
Here.
Cheney,
Here.
Lujan,
Present.
Menuda.
Here.
All present.
Excellent. I also see that we have Mr. Sassy on the line, as well as Alan Sorensen. Thank you for joining. We have a pretty short agenda, and we have a short time frame today because we have a meeting coming up at 3:15. So without further ado, I would like to go to agenda item number 1. And Mr. Sorensen, you're on. Let me read the agenda item first. The agenda item is Alan Sorensen, AICP Commissioner of Planning, and Julie Richmond, Deputy Commissioner of Planning. Item A is an update and discussion on LEED for cities and community certification as a pilot program. And second, are we going to be voting on this as one item, or?
Oh, this is just an update.
For an update, so there's no vote.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for the clarification. 2 will be, or item B is county planning as lead agency for the green initiatives. C is update discussions on EV charging stations, identifying locations for initial installation. And D, an update discussion pilot for farmers market composting. Mr. Sorensen, you're on.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm joined here today with Julie Richmond, Zach Coleman, and Megan Tennerman. Zach will be covering the EV charging station update, and Megan the update on the farmers market composting. With respect to the LEED for cities and communities, it's a new program being offered by the U.S. Building Council as certification. It's a new way forward for resilient, green, inclusive, and smart communities. The office has been working over the past several months to be certified under this new program. The program is helping us measure our sustainability and resilience performance against national and global standards. Right now, we are currently in the middle of the certification process. We're between the preliminary and the final review. We have received preliminary comments from the Green Building Council and responding to those comments based on our initial submission. We're aiming for silver certification. We're probably going to be coming in towards the bronze certification through that program, but we're working diligently to respond to the initial comments on the application. With respect to county planning as lead agency for green initiatives, as you're aware, county planning led the effort for the NYSERDA Clean Energy Community certification. We're also part of the New York State Climate Smart Communities. And the third part of the green initiative that we're currently working on is the LEED certification that I just spoke of. So those are the efforts that we have underway. 2 of the programs that are outgrowths of the New York Climate Smart Communities are the Heat Smart program and the Water Sense program, which the legislature just adopted.
Can someone mute their mic, whoever has that beeping going on? Thank you. Not Mr. Sorensen.
Okay. So recognizing your time constraints on the committee, I'd like to next turn it over to Zach Coleman, to give.
Hello?
How you doing, everyone? I'm gonna try and share my screen here. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, thank you. Is this the same presentation as last time, or is this an update?
No, it's a shorter one. It's just an update of the last one.
Thank you.
No problem. So last time, you had wanted to see kind of where the county-owned locations were for, parking lots. So I'll just jump right into it. We went through real property to get the parcel information of county-owned properties across the county. We then went in and did an imagery analysis of those lots to determine where the parking lots, locations were. And we plotted that on the map that you see up there now. The yellow dots are the existing charging stations, and that orange that you see there is the Heritage Trail. So from there, we went through, and this is kind of piggybacking on what I presented last time, which was the tool that we created. So we overlaid those parking space locations onto the analysis that we ran for the suitability analysis on where it might make sense for charging around the county. So here's some of the results, just examples. So that's the Village of Goshen. You see here, hold on, let me try and get this. So here you see the Village of Goshen and the Town of Goshen. So here's the Government Center over here, and then you have E911 over here, and then this is Valley View, I'm pretty sure. And then over here you have, this is OC, obviously, then this is the Seward Community Campus. And here you have Thomas Bull Memorial Park, which all light up in the dark green, which show a high level of suitability for EV based on our tool. So from there, we went over those results with DPW, and obviously did more of a parcel-based analysis where we could zoom in, and went over it on a phone call, and we came up with a priority list here, of the Government Center, Thomas Bull, the Seward Ave, the Warwick commuter lot, and Hickory Hill parking lots, then Valley View. We also came up with a list of potential future. The one issue with the Chester and Monroe Heritage Trail lots is that Orange County does not own them. But the new recent Heritage Trail parking lot in Harriman, I believe, represents a new potential future location for EV. So based on that, we chose the top 3 locations after conferring with DPW on kind of feasibility. And we decided on Seward Avenue, the community campus, which you see here. This is Thomas Bull, the upper lot near the golf course. And then obviously the Government Center. So those are the locations that we pursued a grant application for through New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. So we submitted that grant in May, the grant application, but DEC responded that the budget we could work on editing once we get to the contracting process, but unfortunately through the whole COVID thing, the awards are all still on hold. We're still very optimistic about getting the award, but for right now, it's kind of on hold, and we don't have a clear timeline as to when that will be. But just to get down to some of the numbers, because you had requested kind of a breakout and kind of a cost-benefit analysis. So we had come up with these numbers from U.S. Department of Energy. Doing more research into these numbers, we found out that they don't reflect site preparation costs or the associated materials with it or any overhead costs. So that's just for installing on a prepared site and for a single port charging station unit. So what we're pursuing is actually a dual port unit, so we get double the charging. So this is kind of the breakout of the Government Center based on the estimates that we got from the consultant that we had initially used. Am I saying that right, Julie? So we initially used a energy consultant, clean energy consultant, to kind of determine what the cost would be. And this is the breakout of just materials, construction, and operation for 2 years. So you can see the electrical costs here. So this was included in the grant application, and I know that the issue of charging users had come up in the last meeting. So that's kind of the basis that we have for 2 years of operation, and then after that would have to be a conversation with ChargePoint, who is the chosen provider, because it's all set up that charging could potentially happen in the future, because it's all a web-based cloud application. So all three are linked on a network that would be available to potential future users. But as of right now, for this go around, we just have the 2 years installed, 2 years of operation included in the operating cost. So if you see, I'll compare the government center and the next, which is Thomas Bowl, you can see that the cost is significantly higher, and that's due to the site preparation, because at the government center, they would have to run it out to the street, the line, am I right? So that represents a higher electrical cost, but it should be noted that at each location, all of these costs represent a prepared site for future potential additional charging units. So the cost would be significantly lower for future units at these locations. Here's Stewart Ave as well, just for. So if you look at the electrical upgrade, it's 7,700 for the last two, and then it's significantly higher for the government center due to that trenching that would need to go out to the street. But if you look at the green, that's kind of in line with the initial estimates that we got based on the U.S. Department of Energy. If you just take apples to apples, actually the installation cost is kind of at the lower end, which is nice to see. And these are all numbers that are in line with the initial estimates that we got for our first go around of the grant application. So it was kind of nice to see that things haven't really changed a lot. Yeah, that's all I have. So if you have any questions or comments, I'm happy to field them.
Zach, thank you.
Chairman, question? Can I go ahead?
Mr. Cheney?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Question relative to who we anticipate to be the users at these locations, and how we would enforce the situation where someone connects, becomes fully charged, and then doesn't move the vehicle.
Right. So we have there's going to be signage in place, which will come from we're assuming coming from ChargePoint, most likely. So, and then you have the lots are patrolled by Orange County sheriffs on a regular basis. So it would be, the grant was written to kind of use them as kind of the overseers of the lots. And there'd also be a limit on the amount of time that would allow them to charge to be able to pull electricity from the grid. I think it's like a 4 or 5 hour limit.
Okay.
And they have to be open to the public, Barry, because of the grant funding.
Right.
Right. Okay. I guess the golf courses, it takes probably 2 to 2.5 hours to do 9 holes. So if you were a golfer and you plugged in, your car should be charged in all likelihood within that time.
Right.
And then the car is sitting there and there's no capability to unplug it until you finish, the 9 holes of your round, the first 9 holes of your round. I'm just, trying to look at it logistically, we've got the Village of Warwick has a dual port charging station. We're putting in a second one, and some of the experience has been people remaining in those locations after their vehicle has been charged, and that's a situation where merchants downtown are using the stations as well as visitors to the village. So we want to keep them as open as possible, and it's a challenge.
Right, that's duly noted. The level 2s that we're putting in have a 4 to 6 hour full charge, but I completely understand kind of people just leaving their car there because they're an electric vehicle and it says that they're allowed to park there. So it's something kind of that it's kind of a learning experience for, I guess, the county in this respect, in that we don't really have the right tools in place yet, I guess, to be able to kind of figure it out. But I think this is a good first step in kind of seeing and figuring that out.
I mean, I can see at the government center where employees with electric vehicles would take advantage of the availability, especially if there was to be no charge. If we're going to start charging, that may be another dynamic that changes the usage. Has any thought been given as to what the charge might be if we were to charge after the 2 years?
You're directing that at us, Barry?
Yes.
Yeah. In terms of this grant application, we're not that far along yet. I mean, the grant is going to pay for the first 2 years of the electricity costs, and then at that point, once we're no longer grant funded, the county would have to reevaluate whether charging is the optimal scenario, and figuring out the administration of that with ChargePoint or whoever the vendor that's awarded the bid is, and whether that getting that funding reimbursed is worth the effort. But as you said, you're right. If you do charge, you can provide a disincentive for people parking there too long. So that will be part of the enforcement issue that'll have to be looked at. The goal of the grant is we get these. If we're going to put them in, we get 80% of the cost paid for now through DEC. So it's a good time to put them in, and we can observe the data and the usage data, and we have to report that anyway. So it's a good way to monitor and pilot the program.
Good. Thank you.
Mr. Menuda? Chairman Menuda? Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, little technical difficulty. Please go ahead, Legislator Beck.
Oh, no, I know the technical difficulties with the mute button already. That's not a problem. No, I just wanted to let the current members in the planning department know that I tried like hell when we were tearing down the old building and building the new one, and with the renovation, to get them to just simply bury a conduit in the ground running from where the building's going to go to somewhere in the middle of the parking lot, so that everything would already be underground, but couldn't get anybody to do it and include it in the plan.
That would have been proactive.
Right, and as you can see, it's going to cost us $25,000 to do that now, because there isn't adequate electricity at the pole in the parking lot, so we have to go out to the sidewalk.
I do have a question on that. Is that an overhead pole, or everything's underground?
The line would be underground.
But we have a pole in the parking lot, so they could pull the line to that pole and then do a drop, no? rather
No.
than cut up the
I
parking
think
lot and go
that was
underground?
part of the issue. I don't think it was substantial enough to be able to pull the power from the street. So they have to run an underground line.
Somebody can check into that because that doesn't really hold water with me. Who's that, Orange and Rockland or Central Hudson?
I'm not sure who DPW worked with on that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, if we
I
just
think it's
confirm
probably
that.
O&R.
If it's O&R, I mean, regardless of that, if power's out of the street, it's out of the street. It doesn't matter whether it goes underground or overhead. Overhead would certainly be a lot less expensive. So I'd like, if somebody could please check into that. But please, any other legislators who have questions on the committee? I don't have the hand up button, so please unmute yourself if you wish to be heard on this topic. Okay, hearing none, I do have a question myself. If I saw the numbers on your spreadsheets, and we looked at about $47,000 for the government center and some other numbers there. When we originally discussed this, my understanding was that 2.5 million was sitting in. We'd already been awarded that, and it's just been waiting. Is that the proper recollection?
Chairman, I'm not sure what 2.5 million you are referring to. You mean in the total program that's available for funds?
My understanding from our last meeting was that 2.5 million was available to us in funds, and essentially it's sort of, we've been sitting on it for about a year and a half at that point.
Well, my recollection is we had previously been awarded for 2 EV charging stations, one at both SUNY Orange campuses, but that grant was considerably less. They were like about $15,000 per location, so that was only about $30,000.
Okay. Okay. Also, we had some discussion regarding usage of this, and again, you did mention that this needs to be granted open to the public for this particular grant. I don't know if there were any others. The question that I had, and we had some discussion on, were replacement of buses for the county, rather than going with diesel buses, utilizing electric buses, and then utilizing part of this program at designated locations for these buses, which seemed like a win-win to me. Any feedback on that? Alan, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman. We are working with our transportation consultant to evaluate alternative fuels for the fleet, including electric and potentially natural gas as an alternative to diesel. That is really just in its infancy, but you know, as soon as we as we get some results to that, we'll report back to you on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, let's see here. So that accomplishes the EV charging stations, which would be item C, identifying the locations. I don't know if any other legislators have a question about the locations and the amount of funds. It does look like we're Goshen centric. I would like to see this get out to other areas of the county, a little wider reach perhaps. Maybe some of our parks would be a perfect location. So without further ado on that, I'd like to close item C.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Lujan?
Yes, Legislator Lujan, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we completely eliminating the possibility of having SUNY Orange as a location now? I mean, I know that there were some issues there because I guess they didn't really know how they were gonna put it in the parking lot, and there was some issue around who was going to be paying for it, But I mean, there did seem to be interest to have charging stations there. Is that still a possibility that we might be able to do through a different grant? Because that's still, I still do believe that those are they're great locations to have, and I know that there were legislators that had been working on that particular project long before I was on the legislature. So would definitely like to see that be reignited as a project.
Legislator Lujan, this is Julie Richmond. The grant that I referred to earlier, we had to turn the
Give the
award
money back. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely that that opportunity is closed. But in doing the analysis as Zach presented, obviously the college comes up as one of the areas that's a hotspot for having the proper infrastructure, et cetera. Therefore, it is now on the list of county-owned properties that can be prioritized for future grant funding.
That would be really great, just because, again, you know, this was originally the location that we were going to kind of start things off, and right. I wouldn't want it to be eliminated from as a possible location, especially with you know, the amount of people that go through there. It's still a great location for us to do it. Perhaps we just need to, you know, collaborate and see what we can coordinate with what we have to do. But I'm glad to hear that that's not being eliminated as an option, because again, I know there were many legislators before my time that wanted to see this done. I know it's something that we would definitely like to see. And to Mr. Menuda, to Chairman Menuda's point, you know, we would like to see something on the other side of the county as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Lujan.
Thank
We're
you,
running a little bit behind as far as my time is concerned here, so I'd like to go through these as quickly as we can. If you do have questions, please limit them to the question. So that's the EV charging stations, item C. County planning as lead agency for green initiatives. Can we touch upon that as far as where we stand with that?
Well, where we currently stand, I touched upon it a little bit at the beginning of the committee meeting. We're currently leading NYSERDA Clean Energy Community Program, New York State Climate Smart Communities, and we're in the middle of getting the LEED certification for Orange County, and we're in between the preliminary and the final review on that, and are responding to the initial questions on the application.
Excellent. Okay. Just want to make sure we touched upon it. Thank you sorry for making you repeat yourself there.
Oh, no worries.
Okay. One of my questions that I had from our last meeting was the utilizing USGBC versus Green Globes or other green initiatives that are out there. And I was hoping to have an answer with regard to the ability to select one over the other, or whether this had to be sort of like an open RFP, since it's not proprietary, but any feedback on that?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask just to have a little more time to respond to that. I wasn't at the February committee meeting. I would welcome the opportunity to speak with you in a little more detail, just to have a better understanding of specifically, you know, what you're looking for there. But I'm sure that I would, you know, I'll do the research on it, get back to you, and hopefully be able to provide some better direction on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. Appreciate that. Any other questions on this topic? Okay. Hearing none, I guess we're going to close item number 1. And I'd like to discuss item number 2, which is the energy performance presentation by Mr. Bill Bassett of the ECG Group. We've asked them to come in with regard to energy savings. They've done work in, I believe, Newburgh City Schools and other districts, other municipalities, basically to save energy and save us bottom line costs. So is Mr. Bassett on the line?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, well, we really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your committee, Mr. Chairman. And well, along with me today is Kendra McQuilton, who is the CEO of the ECG Group, and also Aldo Mazzaferro, who's our Director of Technical Services. My role, I'm a retired school superintendent. I live in Orange County. I live in Pine Bush. My job has been to reach out to school superintendents and municipal leaders to ask them if they're interested in an energy performance contract. We've been quite successful all over the region, but especially in the Hudson Valley, Pine Bush, the city of Newburgh, as Mr. Chairman mentioned, the city of Middletown had a great project, and many others. And you're going to hear about those in a few minutes. I reached out to County Executive Ed Diana in 2013. We had a great meeting. And for a variety of reasons, the project just didn't take off. Later on, when Eric became the Commissioner of Public Works, I reached out to him. We had some great meetings with Eric and Brian Titsworth, and through their cooperation, we've actually developed a preliminary energy assessment that Aldo will share with you. I know you're short for time, so I'm going to keep my part short. I'm going to turn it over to Kendra, our CEO, to begin our presentation. Kendra?
Okay, great. Bill, thank you so much. And I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here as well. We're excited to share this concept with your group, as it's been described as a lifeline by a lot of municipal agencies, school districts, cities, towns, as a way to fund needed upgrades that are energy efficient without having to come up with the funding in your budget or through taxpayer increases to fund those upgrades that everybody would like to see, but you don't always have the funding to accomplish. So what time would you like us to end? I just want to be very respectful of your time here. It's 2:50.
Yes, thank you very much. We need to be concluded by no later than 3:15.
Okay, so we have that time, Mr. Chairman?
Well, there's going to be some questions, so I'd probably leave about 10 minutes for questions.
Okay, sounds good.
So you got about 15 minutes. How's that sound?
All right, here we go.
perfect.
Aldo, next slide. So we wanted to start by just explaining what is an energy performance contract. You may have heard of this concept. It's not just a business or some kind of model that companies are pushing on their own. It's actually outlined in New York State Energy Law, Article 9. And essentially what it is it's a partnership between a municipal agency, city, town, school district, and what's called an energy services company, or ESCO for short. So these are companies like Johnson Controls, Honeywell, Siemens, usually very large companies. And then an owner's representative is typically retained, such as ECG, to make sure that the contract is fair, that you understand all of the complex calculations that are coming across your desk, and you can make very informed decisions when reviewing what can be very technical information as you proceed through a project. So it's a partnership. It's an RFP-based contract, and it allows you to make energy related capital upgrades now and have them pay for themselves out of the future guaranteed energy savings that they will generate over time. Savings are guaranteed by the ESCO. So if they say you're going to save $250,000 a year, that doesn't materialize, they have to cut you a check for the difference. Now, a big part of what our company does is we make sure that we never even get to a point of having a conversation like that, because we know how to control the project and the numbers appropriately. So the ESCO is not pushing the envelope too hard, which they like to do when no one else is involved. But that's the model. There are no out-of-pocket costs for our service or the ESCO to develop the project. And it is really a risk-free approach to capital projects for the county, in the sense that in an EPC, all the risk is supposed to be shifted to the ESCO. So they have to deliver the energy savings. They have to fund everything up front. They need to absorb all the development costs, and they need to deliver the savings. So it's very attractive in that way, both financially and from a risk point of view, as compared to regular projects. Okay, so the way an energy performance contract works, it's a very, very effective way of pointing a laser, having a laser focus on what are the systems in your buildings that are consuming energy, which could be upgraded to the latest technology available that's much more efficient in many cases, and how do we put together a scope of work that accomplishes not only that, but includes some of the upgrades that you absolutely need to fund, such as, for example, if there's a boiler that you need to replace, but it keeps falling off the list, those are the types of projects we look to achieve for you. So the way it works is, let's say, for example, I'm making up numbers, the county spends $1 million right now for utilities spend annually. And so if you don't do an EPC, if you kind of just continue on status quo, you're going to continue to spend that $1 million a year for utilities plus increases year over year. When you do an energy performance contract, it's so laser focused on reducing energy costs and getting the systems as efficient as they can be that we will typically reduce a client's energy budget by 30% on average. So it's a way to make a powerful dent in that budget. So when you do an energy performance contract, if you were spending $1 million before, you're now spending only $700,000 a year in actual utility bills. That $300,000 is what you use to pay the debt service on the project. And there will be a little bit of positive cash flow for the county to enjoy. And we can walk you through that probably at another time, but to keep it high level. So essentially, you've got the savings, and rather than going to the bottom line, they're being redeployed in your budget to pay off the project. The term is typically about 20 years. And then once the entire project is paid off, your debt service is paid off, all of that debt service payment comes out as positive cash flow to the county. So in a nutshell, what you're doing now is spending, again, on average, probably about 30% more than you need to if you had the most efficient equipment available today to the utility suppliers. So by doing an EPC, you're able to take 30% of what you're already spending and will continue to spend, and reinvest that into your buildings to update the equipment and have a green, sustainable, really comprehensive energy project. Why consider an EPC? Well, financially, it's tailor-made really for the time, any economic time that we're in, but particularly now, there's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of uncertainty going on. You don't have to rely on grants, rebates, anything else, any exterior financing sources to get a project like this done. Again, it is going to survive on the guaranteed energy savings that the project itself generates by replacing lighting to LED, by replacing boilers, windows, all kinds of different energy consuming systems. Everything will be looked at and evaluated to see if it makes sense financially to replace it. So it is a large funding source that is currently, again, it's in your budget right now. So we're just talking about redeploying it to pay for upgrades that you need and want to have with no out-of-pocket costs. Budget neutral, zero taxpayer impact. You're not asking anyone for anything. You're not having to increase budgets. You're not having to find any money whatsoever. It obviously improves the building environment. Better lighting, better temperature controls can only help people be more productive and comfortable in their working environments. Again, the savings are guaranteed and the performance is guaranteed. That means that if the equipment that the ESCO installs isn't performing properly, they know they have to cut you a check for the difference after they're gone, after the project's completed. So they have a built-in incentive to make sure that all of the equipment that they install is going to perform. So they're not taking any shortcuts. They're not walking away and saying, good luck. You know, they want to make sure it's a quality job and everyone understands how to operate the equipment because they're on the hook for those energy savings year after year after year. So that is a very, very nice aspect of this. And again, it's a risk-free, cost-free model. We work at risk. So as your owner's agent, we would be working at risk. We would never be asking you for a penny at any point in the process. Our fees are funded out of the guaranteed energy savings by whatever ESCO that the county selects. Okay, just a brief introduction again to who we are. So we're specialists in these types of projects. It's all that we do, energy performance contracts. They're very complex. The benefits are enormous, but you need to know what you're looking at as far as the ESCO contract to maintain that guarantee. There's lots of different ways those companies like to put terms and conditions in the contracts to get them out of delivering on that guarantee. We're there watching all of that. We're making sure that their savings calculations are real and attainable. That's something else that without someone like us in the middle, they tend to push the envelope, put more risk on you. We're there always to make sure that the risk stays with the ESCO and that you get the best out of the project and avoid a lot of the common mistakes that entities have made in the past when dealing with these companies. So we've done about 100 or more of these projects. So we have a great deal of expertise with all of the companies that you would be engaging with, all their contracts, and just all the intricacies of the concept. Okay, and we just included some of our references here. We bolded the ones we thought might be of particular interest to you. Putnam County, Aldo is going to tell you a little bit about that project. SCI Dallas is State Correctional Institute in Dallas, Pennsylvania. So we understand you have a correctional facility. We have experience retrofitting and delivering savings to a correctional facility in the past. City of Middletown, Newburgh, City of Waterbury, the 5th largest city in the state of Connecticut, and Philadelphia School District, which has over 350 buildings and a whole host of capital needs that we're working through with them. So this is just to kind of give you a sense that it's not our first rodeo. We've been around doing this for the greater part of 20 years, and you know, we'd love to bring that expertise to the table for you if you're interested in exploring it further. I'm going to turn it over to Aldo, who will just kind of help you envision what it is that could be accomplished in a project like this for the county.
Great, thanks, Kendra. So, being conscious of time, I'm just going to keep it moving through these slides here, but I really wanted to talk to you guys today about the Putnam County project. This is an initiative that they started probably about 12 to 18 months ago. They engaged ECG. We did a preliminary study similar to what we did for you, for your county. We proceeded with an RFP. We selected an ESCO to work with. And today, they're actually in full-blown construction mode right now, moving through these buildings. And, you know, we included some highlights here of the project. It's about $8 million. Like Kendra said, generally a 30% annual reduction. In this case, it was 38%. Which means about $300,000 per year in energy savings. Now that's across 20 county facilities. It's important to consider, though, that there are probably 4 to 5, maybe 6 major county facilities. But in this project, we looked at every single site, ranging from small sheds all the way up to the full courthouse building that's shown pictured there on the right. Again, there was 26 energy conservation measures in this project. Like Kendra said, it's laser focused. They're going to look at every single opportunity there may be to generate savings, to reduce your consumption of utilities, whether it's electric or gas or oil or propane. This was a unique project in that it saved all 4 of those here. At that county courthouse building, we did a full restoration on the, we did a full restoration on the Putnam County Golf Course building, pictured there in the bottom right. It's a bit blurry, but it includes a full residing, all new windows, new roof, a new chimney, which you really can't see it in the picture, but it was really on its last legs there. We did window upgrades at the county courthouse. You know, these were all priorities of the county that they wanted us to look at, including solar PV, where they had pursued it in the past. I understand you guys have been successful in a large PPA system. The county looked at this to try to roll out smaller systems on across different county roofs that were in pretty good shape. And some of those roofs are actually funded through this project. A little bit of a high-level overview of the environmental impact. Tons of CO2, equivalent CO2 emissions removed. Like I said, from electric, gas, oil, and propane. That translates to about a little under 500 passenger vehicles off the road per year. 300,000 kilowatt hours a year generated by the solar PV, clean energy there. And, you know, reducing your carbon footprint is really a complex topic, right? You're going to look at all sources of CO2 beyond just your utility expense. But in this case, it was up to nearly 40% reduced what those buildings are consuming. We also wanted to include this project for you. Like Kendra said, this is the State Correctional Institute in Dallas, Pennsylvania. We were engaged. This project's probably about 3 to 4 years old now at this point. It's been closed out and it's exceeding the savings astronomically because of the conservative approach in developing the project. But very straightforward. There's only like 4 or 5 major measures here, but they really honed in on what the critical needs were. Of course, there's LED lighting upgrades. You know, any facility that's occupied 24/7 is going to have immediate, very quick payback when you reduce that lighting load. The central boiler plant was somewhere in the realm of approximately 800 horsepower, and it was a coal-fired central boiler plant. We worked with the utility there to actually negotiate them running a gas line from nearby that was to bring natural gas to the facility. That I believe they ran it somewhere in the 2 to 3, 4 mile range from the local main utility line. So it was a huge win for the facility because they were actually still burning coal out there in the Harrisburg area. So there's massive emissions reductions from going to natural gas there. Water conservation, using low flow toilets, shower heads, sinks. This one, when I mentioned we developed this project very conservatively, this exceeded expectations because we found that the baseline that they were actually using was so conservative because some of the inmates were actually using flushing of toilets and turning on sinks and whatnot to communicate from cell to cell. So when the usage was up so much higher than expected, that incremental savings per flush really, you know, saved them a lot of money over the last few years. And then we also got into some wastewater treatment strategies to improve dewatering, but I'm not sure you have that facility in your portfolio, but it goes to show it's just an example of looking at every opportunity to generate savings and revenue to help them fund key upgrades like these boiler plants that are cost $2 to $3 million, right? You need to really budget for that.
Excellent. I'd like to thank you. We're about 2 minutes over my time limit here. I've also been notified that we missed an item on the agenda, which we're going to have to go back to. I don't know if Mr. Sorensen is still on the line, but please take the next 30 seconds, wrap up if you would, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on this Orange County opportunity. We worked with the Department of Public Works with Brian Titsworth about a year ago to develop a preliminary assessment. We looked at about, I want to say 10 to 12 of your facilities, but the major ones like the correctional facility, the government center, these massive facilities that really drove your energy budget, they together spend about $2 million a year, which when you look at that as a potential 20% reduction, that's nearly $500,000 in annual savings. That's the real numbers, the opportunity we're talking about here for you guys. So we really want to hone in on this. We look at LED lighting, of course, every opportunity to reduce your carbon footprint. And then just in summary, wrapping up here, next initial steps, if you were to authorize ECG to proceed with a request for proposals, that would solicit site-specific surveys, details, proposals on what they're going to do at each of your facilities. We would evaluate them with your team and be back here in the fall presenting the findings to the stakeholders. And that really puts us in a position to develop the project further over the winter and hit construction in the summer 2021. So,
Excellent.
again,
Thank you very
for
much.
the opportunity. You understand you're pressed for time, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Just a bit. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you.
that. I think what we'll probably do is physical services will be coming up after this, but I would suggest that we perhaps get in touch with Legislator Cheney, who chairs that committee, with your information, because that will you've touched upon everything that we deal with there as well. So I want to thank you for coming in, explaining what it is that you do. I think we can definitely benefit from your service. And are there any questions of the legislators on the committee?
Yes, sir, Mr. Menuda. Lee Benton.
Go ahead, Legislator Benton.
Yeah, the ESCO says that they guarantee us the savings, or else they pay. Do you give us a performance bond?
Yes, there's a performance bond on the energy scope, on the actual scope of work, like any typical capital project. In terms of the energy performance bond, you can pay that. You can elect to have that included in the project over time. And we can, talk through different pros and cons of doing so. But most of our customers typically don't do that because of the approach we take, taking a conservative, making sure that if there is a miss, you're fully protected for them to cut you a check. These are Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies in a lot of cases that aren't going away anytime soon. So
There is a performance bond, so you don't have to worry about that. That's consistent in an EPC.
Okay, but as a performance bond by the contractor who supplies the equipment, or your company?
It would be through the ESCO.
that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Menuda, I have a question, Legislator Cheney.
Yes, Legislator Cheney,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Yeah, the contract that the county would enter into with the energy services company, that would be a single company for the entire scope of whatever changes and improvements are made. Is that correct?
Correct.
So how is it determined that the cost of the updated equipment that we're receiving, that we're getting the best possible price for that, since it's not being competed?
For a project of this size, I would require that the ESCOs provide fully transparent open book pricing of all of the subcontractor bids they receive. We would analyze it as a team to pick the most responsible bid for the subcontractor. So what we do, and that's not typical of most EPC projects, we bring that level of transparency to be able to show to you that, yes, this is consistent with all of our projects, or consistent back to the RFP process, because they will be committing to pricing in that process. So we evaluate it and continue to monitor it versus other proposals that we may have received. That answers?
Yeah, definitely. Just to follow on. So in a situation where they have the equipment, they're the manufacturer of certain equipment that could be used, are they required to then compete that against other equipment and possibly use other equipment than their own?
Absolutely. You guys, the way that we structure this program is the county is in the driver's seat for all of those decisions. So Johnson Controls, right, is a major manufacturer of energy management systems, temperature control. We have several projects where Johnson Controls is installing Siemens or Andover or Honeywell controls, and vice versa. All these companies are vendor neutral in that they're a separate division from their manufacturing arm. They're a performance contracting division, so they make money off of overhead and profit in the project. So they're willing to do whatever the customer wants, really, in order to win the work. So it's a very that's one of the big benefits of you guys being in the driver's seat, developing this project at risk, no cost, no obligation, anything like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? I do have one question. With regard to the companies that you had mentioned, Johnson Controls and others, I do know that their equipment is usually proprietary. So I'm not sure how that affects us. I know that we try to do things that are non-proprietary. That way anybody can service them. Can you please give us a little insight on that?
For sure. All of these companies have their proprietary closed protocol products, and then an open protocol, they call it, that, not to get too technical, but it's BACnet compatible, and they all have licensed service technicians throughout the area so that you're never having to call up that specific company and say, hey, we need you to come out, and they can basically set their price for those services, right? What I really interpret to be open protocol, closed protocol is how many different vendors can you call on any given day to come out and service that, right? And you're not tied to a single manufacturer all the time. So Honeywell has its closed open version, Johnson Controls has its closed and open version, and that's really customer driven. So
We don't allow, sorry, Aldo, we don't allow them to submit proposals that are proprietary in any way. For all our projects. They already know us, by the way, they all know us. They know what we expect. We don't allow that. So we're going to be watching for that, because you're right. That's one trick they like to play, and we're not going to allow that to happen.
Right.
So Kendra, very quickly, with respect to that, so the equipment that's being installed, let's say we choose Honeywell. Honeywell's controls are very specific to Honeywell. So would we need to change out our controls should we use another vendor?
That's within what I would do, what we've done with most customers is provide a list of every local vendor within 100 miles who can service this equipment so that you can call and bid out that labor component of the project. You'll still have to go buy the equipment from Honeywell at some point, right? But at the same time, you can also, it's BACnet compatible, so you could go buy a train controller that's open and tie it in.
That's answering my question. Thank you.
Yeah, the flexibility is there, like Kendra said.
Thank you. Okay, so we are short on time. Again, I'd like to thank the ECG group for coming in and illustrating their services to us. I did miss one item on this, and Mr. Sorensen is still on the line. We missed the farmers market composting piece. We could just touch base on that.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I am still on the line.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
just going to grab Megan Tennerman from my office. She was going to provide the update on that item. And so if you bear with me for just 30 seconds.
Yes, my apologies for missing that.
You can stand right in my office if you like. Megan's joining us right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not on camera. So.
Okay. Hi. So the composting at the farmers market is a program that is being headed by Kate Schmidt of our office, who is currently on furlough. Kate has a volunteer who sits on the Climate Smart Communities Materials Management Subcommittee. She'll be at the Monroe Farmers Market starting on Sunday. The program at this point is limited just to educational activities. The volunteer will sit there and hand out information and discuss things with anyone who has questions, but we'll be receiving compost material until such time as we're able to identify a receiving location. If we are able to do that, then people will be able to bring their compost to the market, and it'll all be composted in one location, but we don't have that identified at this. The volunteer is going to start at Monroe this Sunday, and we'll be moving to the Goshen Farmers Market at the end of August. Are there any questions?
Oh, no.
Sorry, thank you very much. Any questions of any of the legislators on the committee? Any questions from any legislators in the public? Hearing none, I'd like to thank you for your presentation, and we will get back to you on the remainder of these items. Without further ado, I would like to close the meeting if I can have a motion.
So moved, Cheney.
Mr. Cheney, motion
Second, Benton.
Excellent.
Benton.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Okay.
We'll see you in physical services in about 10 minutes.
Thanks, Joe. Good
Yeah,
job.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.